Good morning. My role here is it says moderator, but I'm not serving as a moderator in any true sense of the word. I'm here really to set the stage so you understand why you're going to hear from these next four landscape architects and how we brought them here to Dallas and how fortunate our city is to have them. So before we begin, I just want to explain one point because I don't want it to be confusing. You will hear references to the Belo Foundation as well as Parks for Downtown Dallas. We are one and the same. We were founded as the Belo Foundation in 1954, so we are a very old organization that then converted to Parks for Downtown Dallas when Belo Corp was sold to Gannett in 2013. And that conversion went from a private foundation where we had one sole source of funding to now we've converted to a private operating foundation that would allow us to accept contributions from others, which was really important actually to the work that we are doing with the implementation of the Downtown Park Master Plan. So this morning I'm going to share with you really the story of how we got involved in this work and what we're doing here in downtown Dallas with parks. So I want to go back, not very long ago, but to February 22nd, 2018. And we were actually having a community meeting in advance of groundbreaking for Pacific Plaza. And Willis Winters, who I know many of you know is our beloved park director here, stood up to make some remarks, and he started out by saying, "I'd like to thank Boeing." And the audience, there was this mixture of laughter, clapping, and then faces like, you know, what was that about? Did they just make a contribution to the park or something? Well, really, that's what stems this work. So when Mayor Laura Miller took office in 2002, recognizing that Boeing had said they rejected our city in part due to the lack of vibrancy in our downtown, she said something needed to change with downtown. And she appointed a committee called the Inside the Loop Committee, which was chaired by Robert Deckard, who was CEO of Belo Corp at the time and the Belo Foundation, but also, he was chairman of our foundation, the Belo Foundation, so he had kind of his role in both the corporate sector downtown as well as philanthropy. So the Inside the Loop Committee had 5 objectives given to them by Mayor Laura Miller. And she said to, 1, create a comprehensive physical plan for the area inside the freeway loop encircling the downtown core. 2, pursue a big idea for downtown, which the committee preliminarily identified as Main Street Garden. 3, ensure the successful opening of the Nasher Sculpture Center. 4, develop 24-hour vibrancy and street-level linkages within downtown. And 5, stimulate economic development through investments in the downtown core. So that's, this committee's work took approximately 3 years. They completed it in 2005. But during that process, with encouragement from the Dallas Park Department, as well as the ITL committee and the private sector, this idea for Main Street Garden, this big idea that we had, transformed itself into the 2004 Downtown Parks Master Plan, which you've heard referenced by a few of the speakers previously this morning. So since Robert was chairman of the ITL committee, he agreed to serve really as the implementer, the chief cheerleader for this project, and with the park board president and the staff of the park department, he believed that the highest priority parks that were identified in the master plan had the potential to change the function and perception of downtown Dallas in a fundamental way. So in order to implement the Master Parks Plan, funding was obviously needed. And as part of a 2005 agreement between the City of Dallas and Forest City Enterprises to develop the Mercantile National Bank building, the city had agreed to fund Main Street Garden in its entirety. There was money allocated for this park in the 2003 bond program, and there was an upcoming bond program in 2006. Money was put in for Main Street Garden for that park as well. The Belo Foundation had begun meeting regularly with the Park Department Director Paul Dyer and the President of the Park Board, C.W. Whitaker. How are we going to implement this plan? So we made a commitment in April of 2006 to for $5.5 million if the city would put in money in the 2006 bond program for land acquisition and remediation. And Robert and Maureen Deckard also said they would pledge $1 million to set up an endowment. So Belo Garden would have that at the outset. That had not been done for the parks that were being developed in downtown Dallas at that point. Also, as you heard earlier, the Woodall Rogers Park Foundation, they had bond money in the 06 program, and as did Pacific Plaza. And that was really fortunate that the Trust for Public Land had entered our market, and they said that they would help the city purchase and acquire the site for Pacific Plaza, and then the city could pay them back once bond dollars were sold. So the 2006 park proposition itself had allocations for Main Street Garden, Belo Garden, Klyde Warren Park, and Pacific Plaza. And then on the transportation, street and transportation proposition, there was actually money for West End Square. West End had been designated as one of the priority neighborhoods that needed some green space. So I think it's fair to say that building parks in a built environment like an urban core is a very challenging endeavor. So land had to be acquired for all of these sites. Environmental remediation, as I mentioned, we had some historic buildings, et cetera. But even with all of that, we were able to open 3 parks. And this was, as I can say, the 2004 master plan, which looked at 18 different parcels of property all in downtown. And so from that, then there were several priority parks identified. And as I said, we were able to complete Main Street Garden, which opened to the public in November of '09. Then Belo Garden opened in May of 2012. And then Klyde Warren Park, as you heard earlier, opened in October of 2012. So very quickly, we had 3 successes. Then, with what was happening in the rest of the country, as well as here in Dallas, we had our recession. But there were some actually positive outcomes that came from that. One was that because we did the construction of Belo Garden during the recession, we came in $1.5 million under budget, and we were able to establish a second maintenance endowment for that park. And then we also saw in the center core of Dallas a lot of housing being developed. And I'm sure that many of you in this room have heard the statistic that in 1996, you could count 200 residents living in the core of Dallas. And at this time today, we have over 12,000 residents living in Dallas. So that's really developed this live, work, play environment that's now emerging. And one of the great champions of that is Downtown Dallas, Inc. And we are fortunate to be working with them on these projects as well. So in light of all these real estate changes that had occurred since the original 2004 master plan, the Park Department brought Hargraves Associates back on the field to do an update of that plan, which was approved in 2013. And this plan identified 4 priority parks. We have Carpenter Park, which is actually a park that existed, Carpenter Plaza, but due to a public works project, the streets were being redone around this park, and it was going to create a contiguous mass of land that will be 5.6 acres, so this was identified as a priority. We still needed to build Pacific Plaza, which the city had purchased the land for from Trust for Public Land, and then we also needed to actually build West End Square. The city had not been successful in purchasing that land, however. And then there was a new park that was added to the 4 priority parks, and that's Harwood Park, which was developed the site was selected because it was near the burgeoning farmers market, which is really where the families are moving into downtown. And this was about the same time that we began to think about our future, and we were looking around what was happening downtown, and we realized that land prices were starting to escalate. So we helped the city buy Harwood Park's property, and we also helped them buy West End Square. And then we went into a development agreement with the city, and we have funded Pacific Plaza in its entirety, $15 million for design and construction, and we've set up a $1 million endowment for that park, so we will open with that as well. We as I mentioned, purchased the land, and then on the two parks for which we purchased land, we actually sell those back to the city for bond dollars, and then we reinvest those bond dollars in design and construction. So we're doing that with West End Square, as well as with Harwood Park. The city owns Carpenter Park, so there was no land sale there, so they will be using bond dollars to procure that site. So what I am just here to set up these great speakers that you're going to see next, and they're going to take you through the 4 parks. Pacific Plaza will be opening very shortly, so that one's first online, but Chuck will go last and get you excited for that opening. We're going to start with Isabel Castilla with James Corner Field Operations. She's from New York, and she is leading West End Square. Christy Tenike is doing Harwood Park for us from Tenike Landscape Architects in Austin. Ken Haynes with Hargraves Jones in New York has been working on Carpenter Park with us. And Chuck McDaniel will present Pacific Plaza. He is with SWA here in Dallas. Thank you.